Hello guys and welcome back to the Summer Day Studios YouTube channel. In the last video we took a look at how to use PBR textures, physically based rendering texture files, and we just used a simple wood material that we downloaded online and applied it to this cube, which looks real fancy. You can see we've got the roughness and the bump and of course the color. Someone made a very good suggestion, which is how can we modify this texture? You know, maybe we don't want it to be this big, we want it to be smaller, or maybe we want it to be bigger, depending on the size of the wooden item. Maybe we want to move this texture a little bit so we don't see this exact part of it. Maybe we don't want this line here, we want it over here. So how can we go ahead and do that? Well, let's go ahead and select our model, and we're going to open up the Hypershade editor with that little blue ball, and we have our material here. If you don't see it here, come up to the left hand side in this material section, and in the last session we just created this wood material, so I've named it wood material. Click your material, then click this button here just to graph it, and that will focus it, and you can see here we now have our diffuse, our roughness, and our normal map. So first of all, let's update the diffuse because that will be the most obvious. If you click on this node here, the place 2D texture node, essentially what this does is, this is the file node. This contains all our information like the color space, exposure values and things like that if we wanted to tweak that, but also it contains the path to our texture file, the actual texture map, the PNG. This place 2D texture, these attributes here define where the texture file is placed on the model. We can rotate it, offset it, we can even repeat the UV. You know, by default it's at 1, and we'll just click that and minimize it so we can keep it in the attribute editor here, just so we can do this on the fly. I would encourage you just to render this in the viewport while we're doing this so you can see if your computer can do that. So we've got this set to Arnold and we're just doing a live render. So to begin with, what I'll do is I'll update the repeat UV. By default, that's at 1. This will be in both coordinates, U and V, if you like to think that's kind of like up and down, X and Y. So if I was to just, you know, reduce this to like 0.2, sometimes Arnold doesn't like to update. You can see now this looks a little bit stretched. That's because we've reduced this by 0.2 in U. So it's like reducing it just in one axis. So you can do this sometimes if you're looking for a specific look, but it's rare that you'll want to do this. If you want to just reduce or increase the size overall, make sure you set both of these to whatever value you need. So you can see now that I've set these both to 0.2. The texture file now is a lot bigger. This looks like a much kind of smaller block of wood because of how little this texture is repeating. Likewise, we can go in the opposite direction. If I was to set this to 5, you can see here we're getting lots of stretching before we update both. Now that it's a 5, you can see we're getting much more repeating. This now looks a lot bigger, kind of a bit more like a deck or fence or a wooden door, right? We can see the planks more spread. But what you might notice is we still have these lines here, and this is being caused by the normal map because whenever you adjust the repeat UV of the diffuse or any other map, be it the normal, roughness, metalness, you need to adjust the place 2D texture of all of them. So if we're going to set this one for the diffuse to 5, we also need to set the roughness place 2D texture to 5. And the same for the normal, otherwise they won't line up, okay? PBR materials are made to be used in conjunction, so you need to make sure to change the scale. And as we do that, you can see now this looks a lot more accurate and it looks like a larger block of wood. So that's how you change the scale for the material. Depending on what you're aiming for, you'll change it. But what if we want to, let's say, rotate it? Right now the planks are going vertically. What if we want them to go horizontally across instead? So we're going to open up a Hypershade editor again, go back to the place 2D texture node for the diffuse, just minimize that, and under rotate UV here, just go ahead and type in, let's say we rotate it 90 degrees, right? You can now see the planks are going horizontally across instead of vertical. We could do this 180. That won't look too much different because it's going the same way. You could even just do it by an arbitrary angle. Let's say we did it by 45, so having it come up an angle like this. So you can set this to essentially whatever you want between 1, 360, and even higher, I believe, if you wanted to do that for whatever reason. But let's just go ahead and set that to 90. Again, you can see the normal map is not changed, and the same goes for the roughness. So let's update those two. We'll change all of those to 90 as well. And now you can see that's all updated and everything's going horizontally, right? Okay, so now what if you want to move this texture, not rotate it or scale it? So there's a couple different ways we can do that. If we go back to the Hypershade editor now, click on our 2D texture node for the diffuse, you'll see here that there is a offset. This is again in UNV, if you think of that like X and Y. If I was to say type 50 in here, you can see that actually does nothing. And that's because if you use an even value like this, a whole number, it's not really going to do anything just because of the way the UVs are laid out. You have to use a number that's between 0 and 1 basically. So if you put this to 0.5, you can see now that's shifted over. This might not be the best material to showcase this, but you can see those bolts have moved a little bit, right? If I set this back to 0, they're over here. We could do the same for up and down as well. You can see that changing. And again, you'd have to change all of this for all 3 place 2D texture nodes as well. If you have metalness or anything else, you'd have to change it for those too. So yeah, that's how you can change the position, rotation, and scale of your texture files once you've added them to your models in Maya. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions at all, please do let me know. Pretty quick video again today. A lot of these topics are quite big, so I like to break them down into little bite-sized chunks so they're more easy to understand. Again, if you have any suggestions at all, please do let me know. I always love to have those because I know this whole topic is really, really confusing. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.